Good evening. Good evening. And welcome to the Black Entrepreneurs Institute show. My name is Dr. Nicole Rankin, and I am here along with Angela Hooper Minifield, Damian Johnson, and Cedric LaFleur. And we are the founders of the Black Entrepreneurs Institute. And we are here to help Black and minority business owners create sustainable and successful businesses by helping them elevate their mindset and their money. So we're glad to be here this evening. How's everyone doing?
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Love it.
It's great.
Awesome. Well, guys, you know what? This week I was in a business meeting. And the topic came up that we were talking about small business owners dealing with the impact of COVID-19 in this economy. And one of the funders talked about the disparity that they were seeing with small business owners, and especially amongst Black and minority-owned businesses. And they talked about a survey that was done by the National Federation of Independent Business that said almost 96% of small business owners were impacted negatively by COVID-19. So many business owners are looking for funding and looking for help. So there are federal loans that have been made available, the Payment Protection Program, and then the Emergency Industry Disaster Loan. But that survey said that out of the small business owners, I think we have like 30 million small business owners in the United States. But out of that, 93% have applied for these loans, but only 10%, guys, 10% have been approved for the PPP, and then 10% have been approved for the EDL. And the discussion we were asking, why is that such a disparity? And the main thing that they said is because small business owners do not have their paperwork and processes in place to qualify for these loans. And that was just an eye-opener for me when we had that conversation. And they said, of course, the numbers are even smaller when you talk about Black and minority-owned businesses. So you have all of this funding on the table to help in this crisis, but you're not able, as a business owner, to benefit and take advantage of it because paperwork and needed foundational documents are not in place. So, guys, today I want to talk about and discuss the importance of laying a solid foundation for your business, because we can see that that's such an important thing as business owners who want to be successful, going back to the foundation and laying that foundation. So I just want to ask, you all are all successful business owners coming together to help other business owners. So how did you determine that you were capable of starting a business? And I'll ask Cedric.
Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, I mean, that's unfortunate that so many minority-owned businesses are not able to take advantage of that opportunity right now. But, I was a person that always had confidence that I could do anything. I just grew up that way. I don't remember anyone ever making me believe or making me think about my confidence. I always looked at things as if someone else did it, then I can do it. I mean, that's just a part of my DNA. That's who I've always been. And I'll give you an example. When in 2004, when I was getting ready to start a basketball marketing business, I wanted to, I said, I want to do this. And my first question was, who do I want to be join me in this journey? What coaches I wanted them to join me in this journey? So I set out and put together a strategic plan, and I wrote down a list of who I wanted to reach out to. And then I started reaching out. That was it. I didn't waste a whole lot of time making sure I had everything in place. I just said, this is what I want to do. Here's my strategic plan. Who do I want involved with it? And then I reached out to those people and set up meetings. Now, mind you, I was living in Chicago, and I was going to start the business in Houston, Texas.
Mhm.
So every weekend, just about every weekend, I was flying from Chicago to Houston to have those meetings to get it going. So you just have to have the confidence, first of all, that you can do it, and suspend the need to have all of the information, right?
Uh-huh.
But to go back to your point, you have to have documentation and your paperwork in order. But you start that by having a strategic plan. And
I
when
like
you do that, everything else kind of flows.
I like that. So having a strategic plan and have the confidence to do it. I like that. What about you, Angela? How did you know that you were ready to start a business?
Well, for me, Nicole, it started with the awareness that I had helped develop other businesses. Most of us, when we start later in life, and for me, it was late 40s. I had worked, 25, 26 years developing and growing other people's business. And so there was a certain degree of confidence that translates. And it's kind of often, even when you think about in interviews, when people will ask you about your experience, and sometimes we don't think we have applicable experience, but being able to understand that experience is transferable. So some of the things that we've done in other facets or other areas of our life are applicable when we began to start our own business. And one of the things that I did really well for other people's business was ensure foundations were solid. One of my favorite nursery rhymes or fairy or stories when I was growing up was, Little Red Riding Hood, right? And you're gonna huff and puff and blow that house down. And we
Yeah, yeah,
heard
yeah.
those stories as kids. But the key, Damien's laughing at me, but he's probably telling that story this evening, right? But the thing about it is the foundation of that story was that foundation matters. And when you build a home on a solid foundation, it can't be blown away. Well, it's the same thing about business. And so that always again transferred in my thinking, like, how do I have a solid foundation? Because it improves, it's not going to guarantee, but it improves the chances that whatever I'm building will be able to withstand the storms of life. And some of those storms, for us right now are called coronavirus, right? So if we put a solid foundation in place, we've improved our chances.
I like that. Putting a solid foundation in place. You said foundation matters, right? And,
Yes.
and, and it's so important. So what about you, Damien? As a business owner, how did you know that you were ready and capable to start a business?
So Nicole, thanks for the question, and I love Angela's answer because I have small kids, so I'm always reading bedtime stories. But for me, it really came when I developed an awareness of the fact that I have value. The only reason an organization will pay you a salary is because you are delivering more value to them that they're monetizing than they're paying you in terms of a wage. And my degree is in business, and I had worked on business plans before when I was in college, and I kept on looking around and thinking, I'm generating millions and millions of dollars for these companies, and I've got the skill set to do it. And so I just decided that I wanted to have control of my time, control of my life. And I decided that I was tired of making other organizations wealthy. And it was time for me to trust myself and believe in my potential and step forward and do it. That doesn't mean that you don't hit rocky roads along the way, but I think once you become aware that there is more value to you as an individual than what an organization is paying you for, then we start looking outward and saying, well, what can I do? And so once I got to the place of knowing that, then it was just time for me to start putting the plan in place to move forward. Because once you know that you're not being paid for your value, listen, organizations will never give you your value. And you can't afford to acquiesce to the value that they put in you in terms of your salary. So if you want to be, do, and have more, then you owe it to yourself to explore what you can do entrepreneurially.
Awesome. I love that. You owe it to yourself. When Angela, when you talked about helping businesses get started, and having expertise in that. So, what are some of the initial steps that you took to establish your business or help other businesses get established?
Love that. The great question. So for me, it was twofold. I've always, it appears, been in an instructional type role through my various career and positions. And as a result of that, I found myself being, inquisitive and learning what are the steps to doing. And I've also always had the personality that when I learn something, I want to share it. So I'm going to tell other people how to do what I've learned to do. So if I had the opportunity to teach courses about entrepreneurship, courses for women about entrepreneurship, and the common threads, even in those courses, Dr. Nicole, was the fact that people had businesses, quote unquote, but they didn't have the foundation. And so we were doing, again, the same thing, looking at where they were, but taking a few steps backwards. And so it was small things like business license. Are you registered in the city, state that you live in to even operate as a business? If you are, a for-profit entity, but I would even say nonprofit, how are your accounts set up? Where does the money go when people transact with you? Is it going into your family account? And for some people, the answer was yes. How do you make purchases on behalf of your company? Do you have insurance? So these were all the things that immediately when I started, because I also knew that I had a desire to take what I was doing to other people's places. So I didn't have a building where people could come to me to be served. I had to go to hotels and other venues. And a common question was, do you have insurance? And not only did I have it, but they had minimal requirements. And sometimes that could be the difference between a yes and a no. After I've done all the selling, all the pitching, all the seeding, they were ready. They were ready. And then I couldn't move forward because I wasn't ready. So those are just a couple of things that come to mind for me.
Awesome, awesome. Business license. Talking about accounts. Where's your money going? And and are you set up for money? How are you going to accept money? A lot of times, I speak to business owners, budding business owners, and I ask, what do you mean to accept money? And they're like, I don't have it set up. So, you got to think as a business owner, if you're going to be a business owner and transfer your mindset from having a side hustle to being a legitimate business, right? Because nobody is going to take you legitimately if you don't believe that you're legitimate. And that goes back to the confidence that Cedric talked about earlier. So thinking about the confidence that you had, Cedric, when you were starting your business, why is it first, just even going back, why is it first important to first establish your why? When you're considering starting a business?
So, it's interesting. And I love Angela's response to that question. But starting with your why is what really gets everything going for you. You need to understand, why are you in business? Why does my business exist? Right? That's the very first question. Before you do anything else, you need to understand that, because here's why. At 2 a.m. on Wednesday, your why is going to keep you going. You see, on 4 o'clock on Friday, when your customer has said, no, I'm not interested in your service or your product, you know what's going to keep you going? Your why.
Yes.
The challenge is most people start with money on their mind.
That's right.
Right. And see, money is just like, the law of consistency says motivation gets you going. Money gets you going, but discipline, your why, will keep you going and growing. You see, so I always ask the question, why does my business exist? When I know that, it's going to be the wind beneath my wings to keep me afloat before anything else.
Yes.
I love that. I
I do
love that.
too.
I love that. The wind beneath your wing. You got to know your why, and
Absolutely.
having that motivation, because you talked about those late nights. If you're an entrepreneur, right, you got to
You're gonna
expect
have
that.
some.
You're going to have those late nights. You're going to have those times when you want to sleep, but you got proposals to do, you got programs to create, and you got clients to attend to, because your mind is always thinking, how can I grow? How can I grow? So that's something that, as an entrepreneur, and those that want to be entrepreneur, maybe you're not a business owner yet, but you have the thoughts or the ideas, and you want to move forward. But these are some valuable lessons and valuable nuggets that you're getting, that thing you need to think about, before even, attempting to start, before you go in and create a program. There are initial things that need to be started, and that foundation needs to be laid. So
Hey,
I
Nicole,
love, yes.
sorry to interrupt you here, but before we leave this point, here's something that's important, especially around this why. Remember, I said earlier that when I started that basketball business, I was flying back and forth from Houston to Chicago every
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
You see, I had to be very intentional about what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't at that time, it wasn't about the money, because I was spending money
Mm.
before anything was going on. But my why was this important to me? Why
Yeah.
was this going to be important to those um, uh, young ladies? Why was it going to be important to college coaches? Why is what kept me going every weekend. I mean, imagine, and some of you can envision this. You're working a full-time job. Now, I was in charge of a part of our global marketing organization, so I would be traveling all over the world. Latin America one week, I could be in Europe one week, I could be in Asia another week, and then fly in and get on another plane the next day and fly from Chicago to Houston. The why kept me going,
Yeah.
because I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
This is why that's so important. So I'm sorry.
No, that's great, because we need to understand that a lot of times as business owners, you're venturing into a new territory, and you
Mhm.
don't have a great understanding of what it takes. Maybe you're coming from a 9 to 5 or a steady job. With entrepreneurship, it's truly the unknown. Every day is something different, right? So you have to be ready, and you have to be flexible with the plan to go along. But having that why is going to be the key to keep you going. I love that. I want to go back to something Damien said. As far as when he talked about helping a lot of businesses with their business plan. And I know having a business plan, as Cedric talked about it a little bit as well, but the importance of having a business plan. Why is that important, Damien, to have?
So, Nicole, a business plan is really important to have because it gives you a track to run on. It gives you a realistic assessment of the things that you need to do and the things that you need to learn, and maybe some of the things that you need to even outsource in order to have a successful business. Another reason that it's important is because it reduces the frustrations. See, many times entrepreneurs will fail because when they got into business, they didn't understand what it took, and that's a really important piece. So for example, when you're getting into a business and you're looking at a business plan, one of the things that you'll develop is a cash flow analysis. Understanding the way cash will flow into your business and out of your business is critical, especially if you're trying to create a business for the long haul. Understanding the marketing, what sort of marketing strategy do you need to do? What kind of market research have you done? Where are your ideal clients? Is those sort of things that you have to think about, that when you sit down to do a business plan, it forces you to think through some of the various dimensions of your business that you will encounter and need to understand in order to be successful. I really believe that how you start a thing determines how a thing ends. And so when you don't start with the right foundation, you approach business with with an unrealistic expectation in terms of how things will go. Many times what I find is that when entrepreneurs haven't created a business plan, and it doesn't even need to start with like a 50-page document, right? But what I think is important about the business plan is the thinking through the elements, right? The, your target market, your customers, your cash flow, your operations, the marketing strategy. These are all things that you have to think about, especially a SWOT analysis, because I guarantee you're probably not the only person that is offering the service or the product that you're offering. So you need to understand the market that you're entering into and understand what your competitive advantage is. And if you don't sit down to at least start to think through some of those elements, then you set off, running, and you're excited. And what you find is that you encounter frustration after frustration after frustration. And when you don't have a business plan, you also don't know what systems you need to have in your business in order to automate the things that will help you to become successful.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
That was good. That was good information, guys. I don't know about you, but if you are thinking about your business, evaluating your business, these are some things that you can use this as a check mark. Damien mentioned having a business plan, having market research, cash flow, SWOT analysis, knowing your target. So as we're talking, go and check, do you have these things in place for your own business, right? These are great checkpoints, knowing your why. And Angela's talked about different initial steps, having a business license, having account management, having insurance. So all of these things are so important to that foundation. And it's amazing. I can talk about my own experience as a budding entrepreneur, and I didn't know any of this. So I started out, just in the trenches, like many of you all are, and have, and trying to figure it out on your own. They say you don't know what you don't know, right? So when you're in that process, it gets frustrating and it gets struggle, and that's why Cedric says you got to know your why. And because I knew my why, I kept going to the point where I was able to get join in with like-minded people, get a business coach so I can learn these things. So Angela, I want to come to you and ask you, we talked about so many things that are so important to having a business and laying the foundation. So why do you think so many business owners, and especially Black and minority business owners, don't start with the right foundation?
So that's where when we talked last week about a gap, right? There is clearly a gap. There's a gap between knowing what to do, because I am confident that we're not the first group of people that have ever brought up things like business plans, licenses, accounts, but yet there's a gap between knowing what to do and what we actually do. And I find that when we were deciding what we wanted to do and what was the impact we wanted to have on business owners, and that's all entrepreneurs, but specifically the areas or the demographics that seem to be hampered the most by their reputations and or what was actually factual, because as we were discussing amongst ourselves, some of these numbers and statistics that people are sharing about minority business owners, they are being projected into the future. As in, the articles are saying things like, it is believed that 98% of minority business owners won't be able to receive these loans. Because again, the reputation has suggested that we don't have the foundations. So it's the gap. It's the gap that we're filling with the Black Entrepreneurs Institute. And so I know where it's posted in the comments, it's pinned, but I just want to encourage people, begin to follow us, because we want to help you fill that gap. Come to our business page as we're talking about some of the things that businesses need to do, and then we can take you from what you know to what you actually apply. But it's really the gap between knowing what to do and then having someone guide you, mentor you, coach you, instruct you on what are the steps, how do you accomplish them in the right order, Do I need everything that you're saying for every type of businesses? Because there is no cookie cutter approach. And those are some of the things that we've been able to do with the businesses that we work with, right? Figure out what's the right order of things for a coaching business for, women versus what's the right order of business for someone who wants to have a business of online courses. Everything is not identical. And so I think that's what's happening. People are jumping into programs that have this cookie cutter approach, but they get to a point and it doesn't apply to them. And so then they feel like, okay, well, maybe this isn't the right step for me. And we know confused people do nothing. And so confusion sets in, and then they stop the process, or they don't have that one-to-one mentor-mentee relationship that's really going to guide them. And again, those are some of the things that I know for sure that our boot campers experience when they work with us.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I think that the reason why people don't put have a good foundation in place is because they start with money on their mind. Now guys, I'm a realist, so I'm gonna put it. My grandfather used to say, "Put it where the goats can get it." So I'm always gonna put it at the lowest level. All right. So people start with money on their mind when they're starting their business, right? They think about, oh, if I do this, I can make this money. That's why it's called a side hustle, right? That's why it's called, I want to make that little extra change, right? Because they start with money on their mind. So then they don't put things in place, all right? So, but when you start with money on your mind, it leads to greed, Bernie Madoff. It leads to failure, Enron. Right. These are some big names, big companies that failed because they got away from a solid foundation. Now, I'm going to give you a personal example. Look, we can sit here and think we're all perfect. We're not. Here's what happened. When I was 29 and bankrupt, I want you to know, I want you to hear this. It was because we didn't have a solid financial plan in our personal finances. It was like this. Ooh, I want this. Here's the card. Ooh, I want that. Here's the card. Ooh, yeah, let's do it. Right? It was never a no. It was no, well, what's the plan for this? When do we want this? Or why do we want it now? It was because I want it. Right? So then what happens is it piles up. And then your business fails. Right. What Angela was talking about, the statistics that, Black businesses or minority-owned businesses don't have all their things in place is because we look at it as a side hustle and we never move from side hustle to legitimate business. So then we make a whole lot of money. I mean, I know I'm a personal example of making a whole lot of money and not knowing where it went. Right? You can even take college students, right? Let's say you're on a scholarship and you're getting a Pell Grant, like I was. All right. That Pell Grant money would come to me after all my stuff was paid for, and I'd have all this money. I was a rich college student. Because I didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
So a college student, an entrepreneur, a major organization, if you don't have a plan, it's going to fail.
That's so true. That's so true. You said when you were speaking, the other thing that resonated with me though too is many of us have not seen it modeled. Because when you talked about the side hustle, I'm just going to tell you right now, growing up, I knew so many people with side hustles, right? The shade tree mechanic, the local guy around the corner who everybody knew they could take their car to. But it wasn't a real business, but that was his hustle. The in-home beautician, right? Could do hair better than anybody, but no business, no license, no organized way. So the list goes on. And so for a lot of us, it truly is the lack of modeled business structured as well, or mentees who are doing it right. So you brought all that to my memory when you were saying that.
The other thing that is what Cedric sparked in my thinking was that, when you don't have a plan, you don't actually know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And one of the things that leads to failure in entrepreneurship is scattered focus. Anytime you're doing anything, you have to have focused effort. It's critical to being successful. And when you don't have a plan, you don't know where to direct your energy, right? And where your focus goes, your energy flows. And if your energy is scattered, then you don't achieve good results that way. So, Cedric, it looks like you're starting a little fire here inside of all of us with what you shared.
Hey, it happens.
Absolutely. Because there's so much that we can talk about of why we don't, right? Especially in the Black and minority culture. Like Angela said, we haven't seen a lot of models, right, of successful businesses from start to fruition to success. So we kind of just winging it and getting our hustle on, and that's what we know. But along that's a reason why we've come together with at the BEI to break that cycle. So we don't have to be statistics. Because as they said, when you know better, you do better. Right. And that's what we're here to help other people, because we have had the knowledge, we've had the bumps, we had the bruises, and we know we've all been there. Right? We've all had side hustles too, the truth be told, right? We're not exempt. We didn't just start out laying the right foundation. We had side hustles too.
Oh yeah, because I could do some hair, Nicole.
Okay.
He did my hair, by the way.
Right. So this is we understand, we understand the thoughts, we understand where you are, because we've been there and we've all been there. But as we said, we know better, we do better. And now not only do we know better and we're doing better, we want to show you how to do better. And that is the core of the BEI. So we have talked about a lot of ways to lay a solid foundation, and this is amazing. And I wish I'd had this conversation when I started as an entrepreneur. This would have been great. So you guys are out there who are thinking about entrepreneurship, or even you have a business but you're stuck and you're getting this information. Let me tell you, this is gold, guys. So be sure that you're taking copious notes, because this is going to help you move your business to the next level. So let's talk about some of the common mistakes, in entrepreneurship is kind of on the job training, I should say. So what are some of the common mistakes that you have experienced, or you've seen other businesses, new entrepreneurs experience starting out, that we can speak to?
Yeah, so not having a plan is a mistake. Not listening to, now hear this, not listening to the right people. See, we start listening to everybody. We call Uncle Johnny, we call Cousin Susan, we call Grandmama, and none of them have been in the business. None of them have been where you're trying to go. And you spend a whole lot of time getting advice, talking to too many of the wrong people. It's okay to get feedback, all right? But you have to get feedback from the right people. Look, I offer my services a lot of times to people, advice, recommendations, a listening ear for no charge to people. But does my phone ring off the hook? No. Now, I've been to a lot of places that a lot of people want to go. But do they call? Do they send an email? No. But sometimes when people do, here's what happens. They don't even ask the right questions. Asking me trinket type questions. So I wrote down some questions that people should be asking. Right? So how do I put together a strategic plan? They hear the words, but they don't know how to do it, but they don't ask how to put together a strategic plan. Why is a strategic plan even important to my business? What made me decide to set $1 million goal for myself? Right? How do I build a thriving business? You see, those are not yes or no questions. Those are high gain questions. I'm going to have to explain to you. I'm going to have to tell you why, to help you then internalize that. And then hopefully then you go out and do those things. See, when I wanted to start that basketball business out, Here's what I did. I picked up the phone and I called this guy who makes $2 million a year in that business. See, that's what you're supposed to do. Go to someone who's been where you want to be. Right? And ask them questions and be prepared to listen.
Yes.
So, that was gold. What anybody else? What are some common mistakes that you have experienced or have seen?
So I feel just so compelled because Cedric just got me all stirred and just because Cedric, and you'll appreciate this. The thing that I thought about instantly when you talk about asking just anybody and the wrong people. So here's one of my pet peeves, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but I'm just going to put it out here. When I see people on social media asking the conglomerate of Facebook about a question in their business. So they're taking the Facebook poll.
Right.
And more times than not, those are not even their clients. And so, I'm wondering, like, why are you asking, somebody that's never going to use what you're offering anyway, what they think about your logo or which cover should you put on your book? They're not buying your book. Who could help you really figure that out? Somebody who's written a book, somebody who's done some of the work or helped people brand a book or been successful. So you're exactly right, Cedric. We get real comfortable with talking to the general populace about things that they've never done, they've never thought about, and never put any effort into. And so listening to the right voices, I would have to co-sign that, unequivocally what Cedric just said, but then also staying with that for a minute. It would be like me going to the gym and sitting down with a trainer, asking him all these questions about how do I get to the level of fitness that I want to be at? So then he takes his time, maps me out a plan. And then after a week, I say it doesn't work. So now I go to a new gym. Right? And that's what people do too. So the ones that sometimes even listen to Cedric, they have the conversation, but because it didn't work in the first month, they want to go somewhere else. So sticking with it, understanding that there are different seasons in our businesses. Sometimes we're planting, sometimes we're watering, but we have to go through the different, the period of gestation and all these other things. And so, I don't even want to add anything additional to what Cedric said. I just want to expound on it because those to me are two of the major pitfalls: not asking the right questions of the right people, and then not hanging in there.
I like that, being consistent. What about you, Damien?
So I think what I would add to that is oftentimes what I see is a reluctance to make the necessary investments in their business to move the needle. Listen, if you're going to grow a business, it will require you to make some investment. That is if you want to move from having a side hustle to having a legitimate business. There are some systems that you're going to have to invest in. There's some processes that you're going to have to develop. There's some people that you're going to need to bring along with you so that you can delegate the stuff that you don't want to do. Listen, I don't like doing details. So that's why I have an assistant to make sure that balls don't get dropped, right? It's worth it to me to pay her for her to handle the details for me so that I can stay focused on the critical activities that only I can do. And so that kind of brings me to another point is understanding as an entrepreneur, what is it in your business that only you can do? What is the necessary thing that you can do? Because what we'll find is that there's so many different things that are needed to make a business successful, but we can't do all of it. And oftentimes I'll see entrepreneurs completely overwhelmed because they need to do marketing, they need to do sales, they've got to do, they've got to interface with customers, they got to do customer service. Let's face it, when you first start off, you're the janitor and you're the CEO. But at some point, you've got to realize that this is not the highest and best use of my time. And so I think that's really critical for entrepreneurs to understand that, look, you've got to make investments, and then you've got to set yourself up to be able to scale your business, which means that you've got to delegate. And so I think it's really important that entrepreneurs embrace that idea. And the last thing that I'll say, Nicole, is that One of the reasons why entrepreneurs don't succeed is because they haven't embraced the fact that when you are in business, you are automatically in sales. Sales is the lifeblood of any organization. So
Yes.
if you think you're about to make a bunch of money and you're not going to sell anything, you think people are running to you just give you money. No, you have to sell your product. You have to sell your service. You have to sell
Mhm.
your ideas. And so you have to get good at influencing people if you're going to be successful. And many times I see entrepreneurs with brilliant business ideas, but when it comes to sales, they have this core resistance. And let me tell you, if you're going to succeed, you got to get comfortable with sales.
Said,
Wow.
said one of our sales gurus, right?
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't take off his glasses.
I know, right? Right? You didn't lean in for it.
Yeah, he didn't leave it on that.
But
Guys,
Damien, but
go ahead,
Nicole,
Angela.
I'm sorry, but Damien, you are so on point, and I can tell you unequivocally, my first year to 2 years, that's where I struggled. Because I did have the plan, I did ask good questions, but I struggled with sales. And so you are exactly right. And the second part of that sales thing I would also say is you got to be a product of the product. You got to believe in it and be a user of it to some degree. You know, maybe the pain point you're addressing is not your necessary pain point, but you got to at least believe that it fixes the problem. Otherwise, you're just hollow. And people eventually that catches up with you. So sometimes you'll see people that start out with momentum, but it fades really fast because it becomes clear that it's not genuine, it's not authentic, and they don't believe it either. They're just selling something because their cousin was selling it and said, "Hey, why don't you come join me?" So that type of success is usually not sustainable.
Absolutely. Wow. This has been good. This has been a great conversation, and truly gold is being given. So I want to, I know we have thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers watching, right? But there's somebody out there that thinking, can I do this? Right? Can I be a business owner? So I want you guys to speak to, even in the midst of all that we're going on, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. Why would now be a good time to start a business with the proper foundation?
Yeah. So I'm going to jump on here and jump on this because I want to say that now is the right time because people know how to rise up doing a challenge. Every person on the planet knows how to rise up doing a challenge. Let me give you the story. There's this group of people that wanted to climb Mount Everest, and the Sherpa was taking them up to the climb. When they got to a certain point, this storm came and they couldn't finish the trip. They had to turn around. Now they were all disappointed. And the Sherpa said, "Look, tonight we're going to have dinner in the lodge before we go home tomorrow." And so they had dinner. And the mood was very somber because of all the time, money, the energy, and effort that had put into this, and they couldn't finish. So the Sherpa gets up and he turns toward this great wall in this room. Now, on this wall is a picture of Mount Everest. In fact, Mount Everest took up the entire wall. Here's what he said. He turned his back to the people and he talked to Mount Everest. He says, "Mount Everest, I have something I want to say to you." He said, "Today you defeated us. Today you won." Just like this pandemic right now. But he said, "Mount Everest, I have something else I want to say to you. I want to tell you that we are going to come back next year and we're going to defeat you. And here's why, Mount Everest. See, today you're as big as you can ever be. But the people in this room right now, they can get bigger, they can get faster, they can get stronger, they can get smarter, they can get wiser. Just like those people that's out there in this audience listening to me right now. This pandemic is where it is. But you can rise up and be stronger, faster, better, smarter because of it. don't let it hold you back. There are always going to be challenges. You see, earlier we talked about why it's important to have a plan. Your plan is like your GPS. It's a guidance system. It's like the sail on a sailboat. You see, the winds are always going to be blowing backwards, forwards, good and bad, just like right now. But that sail on a sailboat, if you put it in the right direction, it's going to, boom, send you in the direction you want to go. If you don't have that sail, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a GPS, you're going to end up anywhere, somewhere you don't want to be. So you can be bigger than Mount Everest. You can have a GPS and you can set your sail to wherever you want to go.
Wow.
Ooh.
Now, who's ready to start their business out there? Who's ready to start their business? I know I am. I'm going to start another one just because of that. I love it. So now is the time. So as we're getting closer to the end, oh my gosh, we can talk so much. Damien, what advice would you give to the audience member that's watching, whether they are a seasoned business owner or maybe they are thinking about entrepreneurship? What advice would you give them? And if they said, man, I've listened to you guys and I don't have a solid foundation. I don't have the right processes in place and systems in place, but I don't know what to do. What would you say to that audience member that's watching?
So thanks for the question, Nicole and Cedric. I love your story, man. I feel all inspired. Nicole, what I would say is that you can only get to any destination from where you are right now. And so the important thing is to develop an awareness of where you are, which means that you have to take inventory. We've covered a lot of important concepts on our time on the call on the show today, and so as you've heard us talk about the importance of laying a foundation, having a strategic plan, insurance, take an inventory of where you are right now. And if there are some gaps that you have, and listen, all of us started with those same kind of gaps, right? That's how we got here. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You want to start putting pieces in place. Matter of fact, you might want to just follow us and visit our business page because we give out information like this on a regular basis. So you want to start with looking at where you are, looking at what you have, and looking at what you don't have, what's missing, and begin now to put the pieces in place. Think about your why. Begin to put the strategic plan in place. Think about who your customers are, what they need, what they want, and how you can begin to fill that gap. Because as an entrepreneur, do you know what you really do? What entrepreneurs really do, Nicole, is that we solve problems. We identify a gap in the marketplace and then we fill that gap by coming up with a solution. So what's the solution that you provide? And begin to think through those. And really what you want to do is you want to surround yourself with like-minded people. Angela talked about not having the right mentors and asking the wrong people. You want people in your life that can speak into what you're doing and tell you when you're going wrong. One of the things I always say is that I like to have the right kind of people in my life. I don't want to be walking around with a booger in my nose and the people around me don't tell me, hey, you've got a booger in your nose. So you need people that I see Angela squinting. You need people that are going to tell you the truth. That's my point, right? You need people that will look at you and say, hey, this is not right. That's not right. We can adjust these things, and then you can begin to make the adjustments from there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, that is all the time that we have, and obviously we can go on more and more and more about laying a solid foundation and why it's important. But I hope that you guys gleaned and got some good nuggets and took some good notes, and will use this to evaluate your business and do that checklist. And truly follow us on Facebook, because we're going to continue to give you knowledge. We're going to continue to give you strategies to help you lay that solid foundation so you can have a sustainable business. So in our final thoughts, Cedric, give us some final thoughts to close us out.
See, a solid foundation is going to help you build a successful and thriving business. Your why is going to keep you going. But here's what I want you to do right now. Every person out there that's listening that needs this help, I want you to go to your computer, get your iPhone, your phone, your tablet. I'm going to wait. I want you to send 2 questions to us. Okay? Now, here are the 2 questions. Don't ask anything else, just these 2 questions. 1, why should I trust you? And 2, how do I start right now? Why do I trust you? Or why should I trust you? And how do I start right now? Those are the 2 questions I want you to send us an email with. And you're going to get a reply to those 2 questions. Why should I trust you? And how do I start right now? Thank you.
All right, guys. So that is our time. We will see you again next week, right here, Tuesday at 7:30 on the Black Entrepreneurs Institute show. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Paul and Roddy and the Empowerment Living community. If you missed this, the replay will be Sunday at 3. We'll see you again, guys. God bless.
Bye, guys.